Hello and welcome to Prague. In today's video we'll be talking about the longest square in the Czech Republic. It's called the Wenceslas Square and it's right there. So on top of the square we can see the building of the National Museum from 1890. It's a beautiful building built in Neo-Renaissance style. Now where it stands today, there used to be originally a gate, medieval gate, entrance into medieval Prague, because where we're standing right now, we're actually standing on the border of historical 14th century Prague. Now if we come over here, where you see the highway, this is where the wall went through. And they took down the wall in 1870, so suddenly there was plenty of space for all these beautiful buildings to be built. Okay guys, so let's check out the rest of the square. Now the square was founded in 1348 as part of the historical new town, and back in Middle Ages people were selling horses here. It was a horse market. Now today it's a bit of a center of Prague's nightlife. There are a lot of nightclubs around here and a lot of gentlemen's clubs and also a lot of shops. So let's check out some of the buildings that are worth mentioning. So guys, the Wenceslas Square is called after Saint Wenceslas, who's sitting on a horse on top of the square. Saint Wenceslas was a patron saint of our country, and he was a ruler of our country in 10th century. You might know him from the Christmas carol, Good King Wenceslas. You know, Good King Wenceslas looks out on the feast of Stephen. It's quite popular in English-speaking countries. Originally, it was a poem about our Czech king, who wasn't really a king, he was a duke, from 13th century, and it was adopted into this Christmas carol in 19th century in England. Now the statue itself, it's from 1912, created by a very famous Czech sculptor, Josef Václav Myslbek. It took him 30 years to build, and it's a very popular place for meeting for locals. You know, here in Prague we often say, let's meet by the horse, setkáme se u koně, which means that we will meet in front of the horse. So right now it's quite popular for that purpose. Yeah guys, behind me you can see Hotel Jalta, which is a building from 1950s. It was built as a luxurious hotel for foreigners who would come to Prague, and the communists decided to build this beautiful building so they would show the wealth of communist Czechoslovakia to them. So they really used expensive materials to build this. Now what the people who stayed there didn't know is that they also built a nuclear bunker below the hotel, and it was used by the STB, which is like a Czech version of KGB, and they were spying on all the rooms, so all the rooms were bugged. And now, you know, the bunker is used as a museum of Cold War, so now it's safe to stay there, but it wasn't always so in the past. So guys, now I'm gonna show you some modern art, and it's a little bit hidden, you know, we have to go through this passage, so follow me. So guys, now we're entering the Lucerna passage. The name Lucerna in Czech means lantern, and it was actually the wife of the architect Václav Havel who came up with this name, and it means lantern, and it's because the design reminded her of lantern, so Lucerna, lantern. And the reason why I took you here is to show you this beautiful piece of art. It's a statue of Saint Wenceslas sitting on an upside-down horse that's dead, and it was placed there in 1999 by David Černý, who's the most famous Czech street artist. It's really just a joke. There's no hidden meaning behind it. Although allegedly Mr. Černý, he made a deal with the mayor of Prague that they're going to remove it only when Czech Republic becomes a monarchy, which is very unlikely. So Wenceslas Square is also a very popular place for public gatherings, such as like big demonstrations, for example, and protests. And one of the biggest protests in Prague's history took place here in November 1989. It was during the Velvet Revolution, and imagine the square full of people. There were 250,000 people that stood here all protesting against the communist regime, and two men were speaking from that balcony in the middle of the Malmtrich Palace. You see there's a balcony, and two men were speaking there to the crowds. Their names are Alexander Dubček and Václav Havel. Alexander Dubček was the leader of the Communist Party during Prague Spring in 1968, and Václav Havel was the leader of the opposition, and after the Velvet Revolution became the first Czech president For example, the airport is now named after him. Now, Alexander Dubček is quite an interesting figure. He was appointed as the leader of the Communist Party in January 1968, and he became a very progressive leader. He introduced a new policy called Socialism with Humane Face, and was basically a series of reforms through which he was turning communist Czechoslovakia toward democracy. And he did that over the spring of 1968, so that's why we call it Prague Spring. However, Soviet Union, we were a satellite state of the Soviet Union, and they were losing control here. So on 21st August 1968, they invaded us. 500,000 soldiers, they crossed the border and tanks rolled in. It wasn't only the Soviet Union, just to be clear, it was armies of the Warsaw Pact, but it was mainly the Soviet Union, and the Russian tanks rolled in. And on this very square, several people got rolled over by a tank or shot. And also the Russian soldiers, they were very confused, and they were shooting at the building of the National Museum, which is standing on top of the square, because they thought it's our parliament building, right? They didn't know that they were shooting at a museum. So it was really sad chapter in the Czech history. So what happened once they came here, the next day they kidnapped our government with Mr. Dubček. They flew them to Moscow, where they had to sign agreement with the invasion. Then they stripped them of their power, and they were replaced with the pro-Moscow leadership. And the period after that, after Prague Spring, it's called normalization. So that took place here in 1970s and 1980s, when the regime got tough again. Now, if you look over here, you can see Grand Hotel Europe. It's a beautiful example of Art Nouveau style from beginning of 20th century. And it was inside this hotel where Sir Nicholas Winton stayed. Sir Nicholas Winton was a British stockbroker who came to Prague in December 1938, and over the spring of 1939 he was organizing train transports of Jewish kids, and he was sending them on a train from Prague to London. And while he was staying here, he organized everything from inside of this hotel. He stayed in this hotel. He never really told anybody, not even his wife. His wife found out what he did 50 years later in the 90s, when she was going through some old documents in their house. And he said anybody would do the same as him, that he feels no special. So Sir Nicholas Winton, he saved about 700 Jewish children. So really remarkable deed that he achieved. Anyway, if you look over here, you can see there are historical trams. They're even standing still on the historical rail tracks, because originally, 100 years ago, the trams would go from the top of the square till the bottom. So these trams would be like from 1911, something like that. However, now, as you can see, the trams are only go in this direction. No more trains going from the top of the square to the bottom. However, what's in process right now, you can see some construction on the bottom of a square, because there's a revitalization project going on, and they plan to transform the square into what it was originally. So there's going to be again a tram going from top till the bottom, and it's also going to be only pedestrian zone, which I think is going to be great. And now if you look on the left side, you can see the biggest shoe store in the world. It's selling Baťa shoes. Baťa company built it in 1930s, and they're selling Baťa shoes. Baťa is originally a Czech company founded by Tomáš Baťa, a very successful Czech entrepreneur. However, because of communism, the company moved to Canada, so now they're headquartered in Toronto, I think, and still remains as #1 shoe seller in history. They sold the most shoes in history, more than Nike, more than Adidas, more than anybody else. So guys, now we reached the bottom of a square, as you can see, and this area here is called a Můstek, which means little bridge. It was called little bridge because there was a bridge over a moat. The moat went through there and through there. And why was there a moat? Well, because we're standing on the border between two historical towns, the new town over here and the old town over there. And Old Town had a wall and a water moat that was supplied by the river Vltava in Prague. Now in 1760 they decided to fill the moat in order for this beautiful boulevard to be created. And today it's called the street Na Příkopech, on the moat. And the street Na Příkopech is the 17th most expensive street in the whole world. So there are a lot of pretty shops in there. and it's quite a nice treat. So guys, this is the end of our short tour of the Wenceslas Square. Thank you for watching. Now, as always, if you'd like to book a tour in person, either with me or one of my colleagues, you can go to our website, lucytours.com. You'll find the link to our website in the description below the video. So thanks again, and I'll see you on our next short tour. Take care, guys.